Looking at the headline inflation numbers, one could probably say that mehengai or inflation has peaked. But what about what you pay for your living expenses? That is your home rentals. That is now part of the worry. Rental prices in major Indian cities are up to around 20 to 25% from pre-pandemic levels, according to a report by Anorak Property Consultants. In some popular housing societies, that number is up to 30%. Experts warn that inflated rental prices may be sticky and could pose issues to the RBI, as home rentals have a weightage of 10% in the CPI basket. But it's not just about what it will do to inflation. Think of what it's doing to your pocket, where the supply-demand situation is moving. And does this really put a different context to the entire buy versus rent debate when it comes to your home? To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Akhil Gupta, co-founder of NoBroker.com. Ghulam Zia, Senior Executive Director, Knight Frank India, is with me on the show. And I'm also speaking with Zahid Mahmood, Joint MD, Silverline Realty. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Akhil Gupta, let me get your sense of if you are seeing that kind of increase in rentals. And give us some color to it. Which cities are we seeing the most? Is it largely a Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru phenomena? And does it really depend on the quality of the project and the apartments or location? What is driving this big growth?
So it does. It has increased for sure. And what we have seen at NoBroker in our annual report also, that increments have been in tune of 12 to 15%. And the primary reason has been COVID. So before COVID, people used to think that the rental, at least the Gen Z used to think that they can live on rent, they can live from anywhere. But when the COVID struck, people realized the value of house. People realized the value of good house. As you mentioned, people realize the value of house in a society where they have the amenities and all these things. And when lockdown happened, everybody moved back to their native. They started working from there. As offices start opening, COVID was behind our back. When people started coming back, for almost 2.5 years, there was no new supply into the market. But India has grown leaps and bounds. We see how India is growing for the last 3 years. So there have been jobs which have been added. There have been many more jobs which are created. There are many people who have come out of campuses. And when they started coming back to these cities, which is Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, Hyderabad, all the bigger cities where the jobs are, where the urbanization is, it led to the increase in the rent. So we have seen, and as you mentioned, in the good societies, the societies which are close to the offices.
What is the average increase you've seen, Akhil? Is it 20 to 25% as that report suggests? Are you seeing it lower? Is it different in some cities?
12 to 15% on an average, but on a good society, yes, it has gone up by 25% also. A society which is closer to office, people closer to tech parks and all those things which have good amenities, it has gone up by 25% in those societies.
Okay, so rentals have gone up high. What really is a bit confounding about it all, and I'm going to come to Zahid Mahmood with this, is that the number of people who gave up these properties, say pre-pandemic, and moved from work to home or remote working, etc., may not have increased as much when they came back. So what justifies this big hike? Akhil Gupta is saying there have been additions to the workforce, but your employment data is not backing such a huge addition to the workforce. So have we seen a demand-supply skew, or is there more to the story?
Good evening, Tamanna. My view is basically what has happened, it's basically supply side. And developers have not been able to complete their projects because of the pandemic. A lot of people had purchased and rent apartments, but these apartments are not completed, as most of the laborers and other employees travel to their hometowns. This is one of the reasons. And again, though there is no logic why the price should have gone up, because the same houses were there and the same people came back. But I would mainly attribute the supply. And the other factor is the cost of construction has gone up considerably. The prices have been affected mostly because of the cost of construction. So that is the primary reason, I would say. And the other major factor is the supply, and especially in a city like Bangalore, where the IT parks are there, the societies are really adding on to this. And I would say I don't see this, trend changing in the short term because, the supply is not going to, change so easily. And this is a primary factor. And I would also attribute, inflation is another factor which is really affected, though even the home loan prices have shot up quite a lot.
Yeah, but not from 12. And again, there seems to be a strange anomaly here in this story. Let me not look at the higher end of 20-25% in elite societies. Even on an average, if rentals have gone up 12 to 15%, your interest rates have not gone up that high. No one's salaries have gone up that high. Inflation overall has not gone up that high. It was maximum, at just touching double digits. So, Ghulam Zia, how do you see this? Is it, in a sense, in some cases, that when people had to altogether come back to the cities after work from home ended, it was seller's market for the landlords. And then that the tenants had to find a place. So they jacked up the rates, and that's where the new normal has settled.
Well, Tamanna, to me, I would look at the sheer numbers that are being put in front of me. And if I go by that, different opinions we have from 12-15% to 20-25%, and on an average, if it is 12-13%, looking at 2025 as the upper end of the growth, I would say you are talking pre-COVID, which is 2019, to 2023. You have 3 years passed by. And in 3 years, if it is 15 to 18% of our growth, which is absolutely normal. We, in any case, don't look at more than 5-6% per annum kind of rental growth. And this is as good as that. So I don't really see why are we making such a huge hue and cry about this increase, because to me, 6-7% has been the capital price.
But Ghulam, can you look at it that way? Considering for 2 years, these apartments were lying empty. And people at that time locked in, those who, were astute, locked in great rates, discounted rates for 3 years if they could. So it wasn't a progressive business as usual growth.
I get that, but on the other side, let us also not forget that the new era of job losses is also just about kicking in. And especially the IT sector, which we are talking about, which is where I was also reading that report you are referring to, talking about the high rent increases as well. At the same time, in last 2-3 months, there's been a huge unrest. So I don't really see this as an ongoing kind of a thing that will continue unabashedly. I understand that 20%, 15% rent growth that has come about after COVID, after a year or two of a lockdown kind of a residences, yes, it is high, but then nothing too much to worry about because, I'm sure the normal will come only in next couple of quarters. Basis last 2 or 3 quarters of data, I don't think we are justifying it by saying that the rents have shot up. Let's wait for a couple of more quarters as well. And also on the other side, when the capital values have also shot up about 6 to 7% per annum, I don't see an anomaly here. If rental growth is also happening, capital value growth also is almost the same thing, not much to worry about. And net, this increase as you're talking about, as you mentioned, it is still in sync with the inflation. So net, it is not going out of whack at all. I don't really see any anomaly in this, Tamanna.
Okay, so you're saying it's business as usual. Akhil, when you track rentals year on year, and let's remove this post-pandemic sort of anomalies, let's say between 2016 and 2019, do you see growth at this rate on an average?
Yes. So typically, if you see a rental agreement also, average rental increase is anywhere between 5% to 7%. Good houses, people put clause of 10% increase, owners put clause of 10% increase, which typically tenant negotiate at the end of the contract, and they end up at 5% increase. So year on year, 5% increase has been normal. I have been living in Bangalore since 2005. For whatever time, every year we have given 5% increment. So as Mr. Ghulam said, I totally agree with him. For 3 years, there was a dearth of demand, which led to supply either locking their houses or they were not able to rent out. But as and when the demand came back, when there were 5 people for the same house, automatically demand took up and market has found the equilibrium in terms of the rent at which people are ready to take the house. This is simple economics. This is simply driven by supply and demand. And to add, the job losses have just started happening. If you see 21 and 20, there have been massive job additions. Forget about startups, even the companies like Google, Accenture, Infosys, IT sector has added people like anything. And those people, when they started coming back to these cities, they need place to live. And people now appreciate that having a good house to live has a very good value in the life. And that's why they are ready to shell out money and they are ready to pay for the rental which is prevailing into the market.
So, do you agree also, Akhil, with the point of view that Ghulam is saying? That's also very interesting, that these are not going to sustain. These levels of growth are not going to sustain because the job losses are beginning to kick in now. We're looking at, global recession fears, etc. We know even top tech companies, the creme de la creme, are either sacking or going slow on onboarding. So will that picture change?
Obviously, and that will happen. Like what will happen is rents may not, so as our report said, rent increased by 12-15% last year. It may not increase by 10% in coming year. It may just go by inflation. It may increase by 4%, 5%, or it may be steady, 2, 3, 4% kind of interest increment which may happen, or it may sustain at the same rate for another year or two. But what we are seeing on our platform, there is no slowness in terms of the demand. Houses which used to take days to get rented out earlier, now we see good houses, good flats, good apartments are getting rented out within hours. I'm talking about within hours. We have example where houses are coming onto the platform within 2 hours. Tenants are reaching out to the owner. They say, I know this society, I know this apartment. Give me the account number. I'll just transfer the token amount to you and please log this out, remove it from the book. So that is happening. And I think it's a great India growth story that we are seeing so much of urbanization. There's so much of jobs which are created that people are moving in. Yeah, rents have increased because rents dropped drastically also during the COVID time. So that is another reason which has happened. And in some of the very good societies, I know the rents are disproportionate to what it was before COVID or during COVID. But automatically with time, supply demand will automatically bring an equilibrium and we'll have the fair prices in the market.
So, 2 points here. What do tenants do? What do those who are renting out their apartments do to make sure, either side gets a big deal? Best deal. Zaid Mohammed, let me come to you on that. Is this the time to sort of lock in if you're on a higher rent, because you don't want it to go up even further, or wait and watch?
See, people would start buying more and more homes, Tamanna, because end of the day, though the interest rates have gone up, people always have this, idea that they would like to buy the home. And there has not been a clarity which, whether they're going to be staying in a large city or they're going to go back to their hometown. So this would probably, change the equation in a time to come. You'll start seeing more and more home buyers coming in and start buying. Yes, rental prices remains at the level where it has gone up to. They might not come down as what Mr. Akhil also mentioned to you. I don't see it really coming down. And as the situation is the same across all cities where IT is booming and even where IT is not booming, people are renting. There is no doubt about it, man.
You don't see rentals coming down anytime soon?
I don't think so, ma'am. I don't think so. But I think what is going to happen is the sale graph is going to start increasing. I would say that...
I think that is in a sense, this whole rent versus buy debate. Does this sort of make it more attractive to buy? Because even if your EMI goes up, it's not going to go up at this rate.
Absolutely. People are going to look at buying because that is where the whole idea is. Because you see, the other factor, what I also noticed is, you see, in the previous years, people would buy and rent out their homes. But that was not happening because of, because rentals had not gone up. But that situation also might happen that people will start buying homes, second home, third home, and start renting them out. Plus, also, a lot of people have gone in for these weekend homes also. So that's also, a sector which rentals are doing well because of holiday homes and things like that.
Yeah. So that's of course another segment altogether where the second home rentals have kicked in. But I want to understand from Akhil Gupta, what would be your advice typically on your platform, you have those who want to rent out and those who are looking to lease. What are you advising them right now?
In terms of advice, what happens, because we are a C2C marketplace, it automatically figures out the equilibrium. Depending on the demand, what we have data-driven tools which tells how much time will it take for your house to get rented out, and what is the right rate at which you will be able to close the house. So that is helping our tenants and speakers to do it. But what we are also seeing is there has been a huge demand in terms of buying the properties, because of what has happened in last 1 year, where rents have increased. People are realizing that my rents are somewhere closer to the EMI which I'll pay in a longer run. So why not I go ahead and buy a house and keep a house, and maybe I may use that house for my consumption only. So people typically ask us whether it's good to buy at this point of time, they should rent it out. So all those things are happening. A lot of people who are sitting on the edge in terms of whether it's a good time to buy or not. The way stock market returns are coming down, inflation has increased, bank rates have increased. People are realizing that it may be the right time, opportunity to buy a house so that they can offset the rentals against EMI.
Okay. Ghulam Zia, is this making the EMI or, rent versus buy debate a little skewed in the favor of buying? Because in the last few years, there is so much reams and reams of information, data crunching, and many who are suggesting that do not buy a house. It's the worst investment to make. Live on rent. You don't need to own your home. Put all of that money in better investments. And that's actually become a fad. Does this sort of skew the pitch, where it's uncertain how much you will pay for that same level of housing year after year?
Well, I don't really subscribe to this whole argument between rent to buy, etc. This is individual choice that you make. You may want to, stick it to the Gen Zs and millennials that they're the ones who don't want to buy, etc. But even that doesn't have much of a logic behind it. It's an individual choice at a particular part of your lifespan. You may want to rent in an early stage. You may want to buy as you grow up, etc. A lot of those arguments are there. But if you're looking at it from the investment perspective, well, I would still stand by what I always say. It's never good to buy a house, because the yields that you're talking about at 2 to 2.5% doesn't make any investment sense to buy a house. You can actually invest in other avenues and earn much better than buying a real estate and expecting it to grow, etc. Absolutely no sense looking at real estate, and especially residential real estate, as an instrument for investment. It doesn't make sense. Of course, it's your choice for reasons that are private to you. You may want to have because a lot of people do stick some kind of a social status to owning apartment. Even that may change in times to come, because that's what the global norm has been. Owning an apartment is not really the top of the choice. But all that said, it's ultimately an individual's choice to whether rent it or buy it. So there is no conversion I see. I have to look at a lot of that data to make sense. Conversion from buyers to renters or renters to buyers, I don't really see much of it happening. Momentary shifts one way or the other would not be reason enough for us to conclude with conviction that the world has changed from one end to the other.
So we'll wait and see how it goes. But right now, if you are looking to rent, you might not be in the best position to bargain. Maybe that search for the best bet will take a little more time. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the chat this evening. And returning to a story that we've been tracking on the channel after a few fintech firms sought clarity from the government on its rationale behind blocking 94 digital lending apps earlier this week. Sources are telling us that